You're watching Morning at NTV.
Happy New Year week. Good morning. Welcome to Morning at NTV. My name is Malaki Vilodera. Now today on the Kickstarter segment, we're all about politics, the national dialogue. We've been hearing many people saying different things. So who is telling what? And who is saying the truth? So that's what we're going to be discussing today on Kickstarter. And in studios to break that down is Mr. Frank Rusa. He is the Executive Secretary of IPOD. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mala. Good morning, viewers.
Good morning. Now, I want us to actually start with the Holy Grail, and these are the bites that the bites that we saw over the weekend, just for us to get to know where is this confusion coming from. So let's take a look. All right, we're going to be having those bites in a few minutes, but Mr. Rusa, just let us in. IPOD had a meeting, of course, over the weekend, and this were at the NRM Secretariat offices. And at that particular point, there were many utterances that were made. And what we saw is that IPOD came out to say that, you know what, we still don't know if the national dialogue is on because we were not invited officially, and we're going to play that bite in a short while. Where is that coming from? We thought IPOD is part of the organizing team of the national dialogue.
Thank you so much, Mala. And I agree that there's a little bit of confusion about this whole overlapping dialogue processes, and I think we can use this time this morning to clarify to the country what exactly is going on. For starters, IPOD, the Inter-Party Organization for Dialogue, has been in processes of dialogue for the last 10 years. It is a constant feature of a multi-party system to have dialogue processes going on side by side with competitive politics. So this is like a standard practice for IPOD. However, after the 2016 elections, the Elders Forum and the Interreligious Council of Uganda thought there was a need for having an inclusive dialogue that is beyond politicians, but brings together various segments of society to discuss various issues with a view of forging a national consensus on several themes, on national values, on political consensus, on the economy, on many other things. Mm-hmm. And they wanted political parties to be one among many other groups to come together to talk about pertinent issues in the country. Now, that national dialogue is structured in a way that is very inclusive, and there have been processes that have been talking to various stakeholders, like the political parties, like the workers, like the business community, different people, to agree on a format and structure of how it shall go. And the political parties have responded back with some conditions that they would like to see met,
right.
And so have other stakeholders. So that process is going on. But on the side where that is going on, at IPOD, we recently signed a new memorandum of understanding in 2017, which agreed, where parties who are represented in Parliament agreed to work together for this parliamentary period, so between now and 2021. So among the things that the Inter-Party Dialogue Council decided to do is to pay visits to the various leaders of the parties to tell them about the provisions of the MOU and to activate that MOU. So they went to UPC, they went to DP, they went to FDC. Now this was the turn to go for a routine visit to the NRM. Mm-hmm. Now, in the IPOD structures, there's a council which has secretary generals, but there's also the summit, which was of the leaders of the parties. Mm-hmm. So while at this visit, they said, Mr. President, we need you to come for a summit to meet with your other leaders of the various political parties and agree on an agenda for discussion within the framework of the political parties. So he said yes. And he said, I'll come on the 12th of December to have that summit and to also participate in the IPOD National Conference. So that is a separate process. But it is true that actually the discussions that can come out of the IPOD conference or the positions that the political parties can adopt from this conference can actually become an integral part of the national dialogue process whenever it commences. So it is not, I don't want to look at them as competitive or substitutes. I want to look at them as complementary. There's a possibility for complementarity.
Okay, because everyone is saying that this could be competitive, and that's why we're seeing a lot of confusion and everyone saying everything. Of course, during the meeting that you had at the NRM Secretariat, actually there was information that you guys are supposed to actually go to State House and have the meeting there. And so FDC was not comfortable with it. Let's take a look at this bites.
So We requested them to write, and as political parties, we are still waiting for their communication, and the political parties are all committed to listen and discuss with. And therefore, regrettably, I must decline the invitation beyond the party headquarters.
We are here because we believe that we can work as a team to grow our multipartyism that is staggering. You know, our multipartyism is still young. It will be good to drive a vehicle painted multipartyism, but also engage gears that.
So Madam Lumumba actually said that, you know what, like I said, of course, and the rest, this conversation, by the way, we really didn't get an official invitation.
Oh, what an apology.
What a what?
What a shame. I should have been there.
And you're actually there.
Yes,
so this push and pull, where is it coming from? Of course, let me quote Mr. Ibrahim Semuju, the FDC spokesperson, and this is in today's papers. Of course, IPOD is meant to meet the president on the 12th of December, like you rightfully said, and this is in the papers. Be sure to grab your copies. And Mr. Ibrahim actually says that the reason we may not attend this particular meeting, and he's quoting the 12th December meeting, is that FDC, as the party, we do not regard the president, His Excellency, Mr. Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, as the legitimate, beg your pardon, elected president of Uganda. If that issue is part of what we will discuss in December, then FDC management will sit and take a decision. FDC is part of IPOD.
Yes,
do you people sit down and agree on what to say on media? Because it seems like everyone is saying everything.
Okay, just a little to clarify. My job as the executive secretary of the Inter-Party Organization for Dialogue is to facilitate space for these political parties to interact and adopt an agenda of their own. I want to tell the country that the meeting that took place at State House on Saturday had a document that was signed by all the political parties, including the FDC, that set out issues they would like to engage with the president, and among them, requesting for a date for the summit. Now, what I need to clarify is that though we have fixed a date for the summit, we have not yet determined the agenda, exactly what is it they're going to discuss, because the purpose of the summit is actually to launch a minimum agenda for engagement.
But how do you fix a date without an agenda?
So let me explain this to you. I'm going to explain to you. So before the summit and in the course of this week, the IPOD council members are going to go in a retreat. And the purpose of this retreat is an agenda setting retreat. Asking FDC what are your issues, DP what are your issues, UPC what are the issues. They have a debate on them and agree on an IPOD agenda for engagement, which will now be unveiled on the 12th of December. So it is a process. It's a process of having structured conversations. You see, to have a successful dialogue, you cannot talk about everything under the sun. People have got different concerns. Those could be the concerns of FDC. There are different concerns of JEMA. There are different concerns of EPC. But what is the IPOD agenda? What are the issues you would like as political parties represented in the parliament to engage on between now and 2021 for purposes of reducing the polarization in the country, for purposes of improving the multi-party system, for purposes of advancing the national development agenda? There are many issues. And I appreciate that could be the issue of FDC. They will present it if it is that's the issue. I'm sure there are many other issues that shall come through. But what I know, eventually we shall evolve an IPOD agenda that shall be unveiled on the 12th.
Let me ask you a question. When you had this particular meeting, IPOD meeting at the NRM Secretariat, information came through that this meeting is supposed to actually happen in State House, and like you've confirmed, it actually happened in State House.
That's right.
But the FDC Vice President, Madam Salamo Musumba, actually said, and we have her on record, and you actually saw her, she said that as FDC, we thought this meeting was supposed to happen at the NRM Secretariat and not at State House. So did she attend that meeting at State House?
No, she did not attend the meeting at State House.
So she made good when she said that she wouldn't go to State House, she actually didn't go.
Actually, let me just clarify a little bit as somebody who was there, exactly what she said.
Yes.
She said that in principle, the political parties had agreed to meet with the leaders of the various political parties at the party headquarters. So that's the reason why we were at 10 Chadondo, which is the NRM headquarters. But while we attend Chadondo, the Secretary General of NRM, after receiving us, explained to us that the chairman was not there that day because he was committed to other...
The chairman being?
President Museveni,
yes,
couldn't be there that day because he was committed to other functions, but requested that they could come, the airport council could come to State House. And Honorable Salam Sumba and some people from the DP raised issues with that. They said, but we're supposed to meet the president here. Would not want to come State House because State House is not the best of neutral venues, according to them.
Right.
And I need to tell you that, however, they said, even if we shall not go to the State House, we have put our signatures to this document, and we associate ourselves with the contents of this document, and we also commit to associate ourselves with the outcome of that meeting. Actually, when the council went to see the president, one of the first things they raised was there are some members of the delegation who are not here because of this venue. Mm-hmm. They are not comfortable in this venue. And the president said, oh, okay, what we do next time, we don't come here. We can go to a neutral venue. You suggest the venue. Do you want me to meet at the party headquarters? They said, yeah, let's meet at the party headquarters. And they said, okay, next time we'll meet at the party headquarters. Mm-hmm. So that was an issue. It was raised. And I think that is how they decided to resolve it.
So from what you're saying, it seems like the president is actually open to the national dialogue. He's open to the entire process.
Yes, that's the impression I have.
Then do we say that we're also seeing confusion from the government? Because over the weekend, the big story in the Daily Monitor's headlines was we're not going to have a national dialogue. And this particular story came out of the utterances that were made by the Deputy Attorney General, Mr. Rukutana Mwesigwa. And I'll quote him. He said that, and of course this was when he was speaking to some journalists of the Daily Monitor, he said that whereas holding a national dialogue is okay, it can only take place under some context. Now, he continued to say that when the country stands, Mr. Rukutana, he actually said that there is no crisis, and so there is no need of having a national dialogue, because the national dialogue will actually tell the world, or it will bring this impression that Uganda is under a crisis, which you're not in a crisis with. So he is, of course, part of government, and the president seemingly is open to the dialogue. So who is saying what?
Okay, now just a little clarification.
Yes.
There is the big picture of a dialogue. The big subject is dialogue. But there's two faces of this dialogue. There's the national all-inclusive dialogue that is trying to bring the whole, led by Elders Forum and IRSU, that's trying to bring in all Ugandans to talk about a range of issues. So they have structured it in a certain way, and they have explained to us in their national dialogue framework paper.
It's actually here.
Yes, so the Attorney General is responding to that. He's saying the way it is, he has a number of questions he would like the Interreligious Council to clear up, and he's saying if those are not cleared, he doesn't see, as the legal advisor to government, the need for a dialogue. That is the legal opinion that the government is getting now from the Office of the Attorney General. While that process is still going on, the president is now speaking to political parties under the auspices of IPOD, that we can still have our inter-party dialogue to continue discussing the issues that we have as political parties. That does not in any way undermine or negate the national dialogue process. It can actually complement the national dialogue process. If it ever takes off, the results from the political dialogue can just be included in the agenda of the national dialogue. So these are two tracks of dialogue. One is grander and bigger and more structured and a little bit, it has a lot of angles to it. And one is just among the political parties. So while the Attorney General and even the political parties raise some conditions to the national dialogue process, while that is being dealt with, and I'm sure the Interreligious Council and Elders Forum, who are taking a lead on this, and the group of 6, are going to resolve some of these issues, and then we shall know what happens with the national dialogue process. But in the meantime, what we know for sure is that the political parties are going to meet and agree on their issues as political parties
under
to begin
IPOD.
Resolving them under IPOD.
Under
so
IPOD.
That is very critical to get that difference.
But still under IPOD, it seems FDC, DP have their own issues as well. So, okay, it's quite complex.
It seems that's not really that, because I told you the document that was discussed on Saturday had all the signatures. I facilitate these people, so I sit with them quite a bit. And I can tell you that there is a commitment. I've talked to all the principals of the political parties, personally. I have talked to all the secretary generals of the political parties and all their delegates to the iPod Council. I know it in principle that they're all committed to a dialogue. But as you know, in a dialogue, it is being a dialogue, it means that people are coming from different positions in order to try and find a common ground. So naturally, there will always be a little bit of push and pull because you're coming from extreme positions and trying to find a middle ground. So let's not call that confusion. Let's just call it the nature.
It is
of,
confusion.
It is the nature of political engagement. This is how politics is.
Okay, and you actually said that it is the nature of political engagement. Are we seeing politics getting into a process that is quite important for the nation? Are we seeing politicians playing politics, the game of politics, just trying to frustrate this particular process? Of course, iPod, you have your issues sorted out. The issues, FDC is still not comfortable, but it's okay. You're gonna, like you're saying, you're confident that issues are gonna be sorted out. But when it comes to the national dialogue, of course, iPod representing all these political parties, are we seeing this entire process just being, you know, scattered into different kind of disadvantages and just people trying to frustrate the entire process just because they're playing politics?
No, I don't want to use, I would think that the word frustrate is a little, it's a big, not a little bit, but it's quite big. So I wouldn't use the word frustrate, but I need to say, and to be honest, fellow Ugandans, the issues of, the issues being presented for dialogue in either forum, whether it is in the IRCU led track, elders led track, or even the iPod led track, however, whichever way you package them, these issues ultimately have political implications. They're political. Issues to do with improvement of society in any form. How should we improve our society to live a better life as Ugandans, to coexist, whichever way, and whether it's about the economy, whether it's about social services, whether it's about national values, at the end of the day, it has a political blend to it. So let us be honest with ourselves. These issues are political. And if, because they are political, you will expect that there will be a political blend to them. Politicians will have to approach them politically. To think that you can remove politics from a discussion about which way to go as a nation is to tell ourselves a lie. So let's face a reality. Whichever way you look at it, these issues are political. And of course, politicians and political leaders and anybody interested in politics will have to approach it politically. So this is not something we can run away from. And I've sat in meetings at the IRCU as one of the group of 6, and I've made this point clear to my colleagues there. And I said, we have to accept. We cannot say, there's no, where does other things start and politics start? Where does it end?
Because that's the issue. People were
really
saying, experts were actually saying that if we bring politics on board with regards to the national dialogue, then it will never be successful. We need to put politics aside and just come on board as leaders of a nation.
Yes, I agree that it is possible to say that I am going to approach the dialogue process not completely tied to my political inclinations. I come with an open, this is for Uganda. But that one does not mean that I do not have political background or a political orientation. It's a question of how you address it. For example, iPod. Let me give you an example of iPod. When these people come to iPod, I just know all of them have got ideological differences. All of them think this country should go in a different direction.
It's competition.
It's competition. But when they come in iPod and you hear them speak as iPod, it means for some time we have put down our political inclinations on the side, and we have evolved a consensus on what is it that we'd like to speak with one voice as political parties represented in parliament. And that time comes. Whenever you hear an iPod position, there's a very big difference between an iPod position and an FDC position or an NRM position. So it is possible, even in politics, to have a common position that is national, focusing on the national interest, and individual positions. So these are, of course, as a young democracy, we're going to be grappling with these issues quite a bit. But with time, as we grow, we shall start appreciating the distinctions and all these kind of things.
Okay.
Yeah.
iPod is coming into this whole, you know, kind of conversation, the national dialogue, as a unit. Of course, there are other 6 units involved in the planning. Now, I'll bring you up to speed on what the papers say, and this is in the New Vision. Be sure to grab your copies. Now, of course, the big title is the National Dialogue is meant to cost the taxpayer 11 billion Uganda shillings. But there are issues to do with DP and FDC pulling out. And of course, DP, FDC are under iPod. And I'll ask you this, are you concerned about these particular issues that are cropping out? Of course, it's not new. Now, the DP party has already opted out, and this is in the papers, of course, of the national dialogue on grounds that they cannot have a meaningful dialogue with a regime that continues to suppress political dissent and violation of human rights. That is DP, the Democratic Party. Now, the Forum for Democratic Change, this is FDC, it has actually pulled out, saying that it demands that a presidential poll audit of the 2016 results done. If it's not done, they're not going to be part of the national dialogue. And these two parties are under iPod. Does this concern you? Will it compromise the quality of iPod being part of the, groups that are actually organizing this national dialogue?
Concern, maybe I will not say concern, but I appreciate that it is, those two positions are an uncomfortable development in the process. However, in a process of this nature, uncomfortable developments are normal. And when they come, they just need to be tackled. When, as you have said rightly, iPod is represented in the group of 6, and I've sat in meetings there, and I listened to the concerns raised by the individual parties to the group of 6, and especially to the IRCU and Elders Forum. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I did that I thought were necessary was to organize a conversation between the Elders Forum and the IRCU and iPod at our secretariat. I invited them to come, and they were Justice Ogola and his team were very kind to come and explained exactly the structuring, and the political parties also explained. What came out of that meeting was that we understand the aspirations and aims and objectives of the national dialogue process. But the parties were saying we are big stakeholders in the public the arena of Uganda. Mm-hmm. The issues you raise have quite a bit of implications on how we approach this process or on how we get out of this process. So we are requesting that you give us a little bit more time. They were actually saying that they were uncomfortable the 21st of November, saying we need a little bit of more time to go back. Actually, there was even an invitation to IRCU. Why don't you come and speak to our top party organs, the Central Executive Committees and them, and get them to understand this, because we are seeing a lot of this from the media, but we need to get a little bit more, because for us, this is not a small matter, it's a big matter. So IRC was, as usual, said, of course, we shall respond to those concerns, because IRC has been very proactive and they try to solve as many hurdles as they meet along the process. So they had gone back, and they were yet to get back and firm up. That's when we saw this position from the Attorney General. But let me say this, that it would be nice for all of us if all processes were smooth. But because there's so much contention in this country, there's so many ideas about what is going wrong and what's going right. The narratives, there are many conflicting narratives. Obviously, whoever is managing this process, call it iPod, call it an Elders Forum or IRCU, it's not going to be an easy task. There's going to be difficulties. But what is most important is that there has to be a commitment on all parties, not only the conveners, but also the participants and the facilitators, to try and work together to deal with some of these issues. So, yes, these are some difficulties. Yes, there are challenges, but they're not insurmountable challenges. Maybe we need a little bit more time. Maybe we need a little bit more consultation. Maybe we need to listen to more critically to some of the positions being raised, the conditions, and maybe ask some people who are making conditions that you feel may not be realistic in light of the objectives. I mean, there's going to be a little bit of that engagement. So I can see that there may have to be some modifications to how we approach this process. But this is a process that is good for the country. That is the reason why even iPod is in the group of 6. That's the reason why we're hearing every leader in principle speak positively about it. But the mechanics of how to execute, of course, will have some complications. And yeah, these are some of the birth pangs that we're experiencing of a young democracy.
Okay, we're supposed to be seeing the launch of the national dialogue on the 21st of this month. In your opinion, observing all this that is happening, do you think it's going to take place?
I wouldn't like to make a comment on that, because in as much as we are in the group of 6, we are not necessarily in the driver's seat of this event because it is led by the Elders Forum and IRCU. I am aware that in the course of this week they're going to make some final meetings to talk about the launch. I think that in the course of this week we shall get a definitive communication from the Interreligious Council and the Elders Forum to tell us about this process. I would not want to say this or that, to commit myself on anything like that, but I really wish this whole dialogue process, I wish it could actually take off because I think it's good for the country. Dialogue, from whatever perspective you look at it, is good. It's good for political people to talk. It's good for our nation to talk. We need to resolve our problems through talking.
And of course, not talking, but talking and implementing.
Yes.
But before we come to a close,
good.
of course, when this conversation about the national dialogue became big, concerns have been there and we always monitor what the public have to say. And what they're saying is that they're very skeptical about how successful this will be, beg your pardon, because in the past, you've seen different bigwigs, them that the public really relied on to express and to represent their voices, being compromised and hence silenced. Are we going to see the same issue again? Big leaders being compromised?
Mala, let me tell you, I am by orientation an optimist. I know that there have been concerns about people getting compromised, getting derailed from the original agenda, and many other things. But I have a feeling that the desire for dialogue, not only from the National Elders Forum or IRCU and the Group of Six, even NIPOD, the sudden interest and buzz around dialogue in this country is informed by its need. I think many people have come to a realization that we are at that point where we need dialogue. This is not the usual, this kind of conversation has not been in our country for many years. The reason why it has sprouted up and gained prominence now is because of its need. And normally when a need of this nature evolves, the need itself will sustain the dialogue because the need is here. That, I think, is motivation enough to sustain this process.
So the need is here.
The need is here.
Okay. Deputy Attorney General doesn't seem to agree. Okay, thank you so much. Mr. Frank Rusa, the Executive Secretary of IPOD.
It's always a pleasure to come here, and thank you so much for having me this morning.
You're welcome. That has been the conversation here on Kickstarter. Keep your views coming. We are on Twitter, social media platforms, that's Facebook, YouTube, and the hashtag is Morning at NTV. We still continue. Don't go away.